Yo, it's your boy Logos, and I want to do part two of FD Signifier's video talking about NFL running backs. And I think this is the part I was finally waiting for. At the end of the last video, he was talking his nonsense about NFL running backs and the history of it, and then his perceived racial reasons for the evolution of NFL running backs and salary caps and all this other stuff. Now, he finna just come out and say it. He finna come out and say the reason why the NFL rules change was protect, white quarterbacks and have the positions and the focus and the importance of it. Focus on white positions or positions dominated by white people, white athletes, white players. I'm expecting as much logic as I got when you talked about basketball briefly, which sounded a whole bunch of nonsense. Saying that the game of basketball got less physical because of the integration of Europeans and having it be less black dominated or whatever that means to him is straight up nonsense. MJ and other players help push for a less physical league. Also, at the same time, the league being less physical, it demonstrates the evolution of basketball similar to football. You have a less focus on bigs being forced into the paint and around the basket, and now you have bigs that can shoot. They can pull up from mid range. They can do a lot of different things. They can pass. You can run the offense through a big. If you have a really good one like the Joker from the Denver Nuggets, all these different things in the evolution of basketball allow for different players like Steph Curry, Trae Young to do these current roles they have now and get these big contracts. These guys probably wouldn't survive in the 90s, at least not driving to the basket. And back then, there was no focus on shooting. The 3-point shot wasn't as big as it is now, obviously. The 3-point shot isn't as big. It wasn't as big 10 years ago or 15 years ago as it is now. And that evolution led to new players, new techniques, new playbooks, and new styles to make the game better for your particular team. I think that's the same way with football. Running backs are not as valuable now because you can get two or three to do the same thing and put that money into other positions. And we have a more focus on pass, league, offense. It just makes more sense. I'm putting that money into my quarterback, my left tackle, my defense, my wide receivers. Then I'll focus on running backs to see what I need to fit those gaps in my offense. It just makes sense. When we look at injuries and how losing a quarterback can really diminish your overall team and the performance compared to losing a running back, like, come on, we see the numbers. We've seen the Bengals. They was in the Super Bowl a couple years ago or a year ago. Just now, they couldn't even make the playoffs, I think. It is what it is. But let's get into it.
To say that I think a key element to the rule changes in the NFL over the last 20 years was not so much for the good of the sport, but a little bit of jockey theory. I don't think you can ignore that this alteration just so happened to shift the balance of power and focus of NFL stardom and offenses from the almost categorically black running backs who dominated the position to the still at the time predominantly white quarterback position. And that's something that's changed, and I'll get to that in a second. If you look at this shift as well as the rule changes, it all begins in the early 2000s, right alongside the emergence of Peyton Manning and Tom Brady as the superstars and faces of the NFL. Manning enters the league in 1998 and Brady enters in 2000. And in 2002, it becomes illegal to hit a QB helmet to helmet. In 2005, unnecessary roughness penalties began on big hits on receivers. Brady and Manning had already become very successful, but this is where you start to see their numbers significantly expand. And I want to be clear, because I know people are going to call me on this. I'm not saying that Brady and Manning weren't great or legends deserving of the top spots that they had in the NFL, but it's impossible not to see how their games change after these changes in the rules. For those who were there, when Brady first came into the league, he wasn't an elite passer. He was mostly a game manager, especially for those early championship teams that he was on. Those early Super Bowl championships were won because of defense and running games. And that's how most Super Bowl championships were won up until the late 2000s. It's not until 2005, after rule changes, where Brady even posts a 4,000-yard passing season. 2 years after that, he breaks almost every passing record for a season in the book when he gets Randy Moss on his team and the team goes 17-0 in the regular season. And then the following year, he gets hurt in the first game of the season. A low hit from a defender tears up his knee in week 1. And guess what? The next year, they literally make that type of hit illegal. They changed the rules of the entire NFL to make it so that somebody had to pay for Tom Brady missing an entire season. Regardless of how you see the racial component, recognize that the game was just different before these rule changes. QBs of the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s didn't win championships just by being great by themselves. Guys like Dan Marino, Warren Moon, Boomer Esiason, and Jim Kelly are Hall of Fame level QBs that put up great numbers but couldn't beat the truly great complete teams. Great QBs that won Super Bowls had to be surrounded by good defenses and running games like Troy Aikman in Dallas or Steve Young in Joe Montana in San Francisco. And again, young Tom Brady in New England. In fact, during that time period, it was more than possible to win a Super Bowl with a bad to mediocre quarterback. Just look at the legendary names that have won a Super Bowl, such as Trent Dilfer, Brad Johnson, Jeff Hostetler. John Elway is arguably the most talented quarterback to ever play the position, and he single-handedly took his teams to 3 Super Bowls earlier in his career, but he didn't win. In fact, he got blown out in most of them. He didn't win his first and then second Super Bowl until he was much older and a less effective quarterback, greatly because he had a Hall of Fame level running back on his team at the time. Today, things are the opposite. A good defense can't get you very far if you don't have an elite quarterback on the other side. Tom Brady dominated most of the decade on teams where you can't name 3 or 4 other significant players. Tom Brady was so good.
Wait, hold on. I just want to make sure I heard that correctly.
Quarterback, greatly because he had a Hall of Fame level running back on his team at the time. Today, things are the opposite. A good defense can't get you very far if you don't have an elite quarterback on the other side. Tom Brady dominated most of the decade on teams where you can't name 3 or 4 other significant players. Tom Brady was...
I don't know if that's completely true. Because even on that 2017 when he had Randy Moss, that defense was good. Of course, people are going to think about that last catch with the Giants, but that was Rodney Harrison, from my memory, right there trying to get that ball out. Asante Samuel Jr. I might be having a year off, but Seymour, Vince Wilfork, all these different guys. And earlier, Teddy Bruschi, Mike Vrabel. There's one more that I'm forgetting, and I'm ashamed that I'm forgetting the last linebacker. But I think it might have been the guy that actually played for the Chargers that unfortunately committed suicide. And they're probably gonna get hit by YouTube. But yeah, but either way, like Tom Brady, he had some decent, but not even decent, good defenses. Bill Belichick is a defensive guy. That's his main thing, defense. So when Tom Brady had Super Bowls, he still had a good defense.
So good that he literally just joined a random team in 2020, and that team won the Super Bowl, even though they were one of the worst teams in the NFL for the preceding years.
Because their quarterback wasn't good. They had a good roster. That defense was good, and that was developed over time. The offense was good. Mike Evans is going to the Hall of Fame. He has had 1,000 yards, I think 10 years straight now. So they had weapons. They just needed a person, a quarterback, to guide them and lead them down the way, and to make sure they stay focused when stuff get tight or in the playoffs. And that's what he did. Plus, to make key passes, make key decisions, and also, like Tom Brady does every single time, make a game-winning drive.
You can pretty much pencil in the Chiefs as the AFC representative in the Super Bowl every year as long as Patrick Mahomes is playing, and he's only lost the Super Bowl to Tom Brady. But Mahomes also brings up another interesting issue as we circle back to whether or not race is as big a deal for the NFL as it might seem, depending on how you look at jockey syndrome. See, with all the changes in the game, to put it simply, it's easier to be a quarterback. And that has also changed what the quarterback looks like, not just in terms of race, but also in terms of height and athletic ability. Now more quarterbacks are smaller, faster, and suddenly blacker. The position that's changed, and many of these black quarterbacks and their high-end athletic ability, more than likely years ago before the changes in the game, would have been forced to play other positions instead of being allowed to play quarterback. This year, nearly half the starting quarterbacks in the NFL are of African American descent. 3 black quarterbacks were the first quarterbacks drafted in this past year's NFL draft, which has never happened before. So we will see in the future if things are really as racially motivated as I sometimes suspect, whether or not new rule changes or some other phenomenon comes to make that happen a lot less than it's happening now. And
no matter what they do, he'll probably figure out some way to make it about race and some other nonsense. But that's the good thing about the evolution of the game. Like I said in the last video, different players that couldn't get a chance before cannot get a chance now. Not because of race or anything like that. Like I made the example of, and he made the example too, which I give him credit for. Ray Lewis, Brian Urlacher. You needed big, strong guys, especially in the middle or at the linebacker position, because you need to stop the defense and these great running backs. Now you need players like Fred Warner, players that can play 2 ways. They can stop the defensive running game, but they can also play offense, play the offensive pass, and do so effectively. Those are the most valuable linebackers you can get. Not everybody can do that. Not everybody has the size, speed, agility, and the awareness to figure out what is being called, because RPOs, checks, all the stuff that these quarterbacks do. And also, like touched on here with the quarterback thing, having a more of a pass friendly league where you can focus on getting your position players out in space, and the game isn't so focused on running the football down the middle, smash mouth football. It just makes everybody able to do different things. So now you can have a quarterback that is more athletic, and you're not wasting his potential or his speed or any of the other things, because you can make an offense around that and build a good team around that, or at least he can use his abilities to further a play, but it couldn't last. Like we just saw with Patrick Mahomes, being able to go outside the pocket, run towards the sideline, and use his crazy unique ability to throw it sideways or any positional angle for a pass. That's the good thing about evolution or evolving the game. Not everything is negative, and not everything is about race. And sometimes it benefits everybody. It may not benefit particular people, but it can benefit a lot of different people. But that's not really being focused on, because that doesn't go with the agenda.
And to be honest, I think that actually won't be the case. But here's the thing, the racial element of jockey syndrome is not always purely about black men, but more so the types of black men that are allowed to enter into certain spaces. So while there are more black QBs than ever before, there's also a clear delineation between them and every other black position being played in the NFL. All QBs, even the black ones, tend to be more clean cut than their peers. A 2014 survey found that the vast majority of QBs in the NFL come from 2-parent households. I can't find data on this.
Well, I won't go back to the 2-parent household thing, because I don't got much to say about that. But it makes complete sense why they're more clean cut and shaven. Mostly because they have to focus more of their time on learning the offense, learning their players, and because they're the focus of the team and the prime guy. They have more business, more sponsorships, less free time. So they have to be more clean cut and restricted in their lifestyle and discipline to accomplish all those different things, all those responsibilities. There's nothing racial there, nothing about holding black men down and look this type of way. No, it just made logical sense. Like even well, I can't remember if I'm not forgetting his name. Damn, I feel ashamed. But the right receiver from the Los Angeles Rams. I can't remember, I'm forgetting his name right now, because I really don't watch the Rams that much. But he's a white guy, and he doesn't look clean cut and shaven. He's just like a chill out white guy, I guess. I don't know, like a young white guy. I think he got like earrings, maybe a few tattoos, but he's less clean cut compared to Matthew Stafford. Of course, Matthew Stafford is older, but even when he first came into the league, he was clean cut. He didn't have no tattoos or stuff like that. I don't think that's a crazy wild thing to have, because I have tattoos myself. But it is less clean cut shaven compared to Matthew Stafford or I guess Josh Allen. I don't know if Josh Allen have like tattoos, wear earrings and stuff like that, but it made sense.
I'm very open to be proven wrong, but I imagine that is probably an extreme outlier for most other NFL players. And the result of this is that although the QB position isn't as overwhelmingly white as it was in the past, that position is still very white coded. Players adhere to this code of conduct and aesthetic, and players that don't adhere to that, such as Cam Newton or Lamar Jackson, are faced with scrutiny for their behavior in ways that other quarterbacks are not. The quarterback is an esteemed and protected class in the NFL, unlike the running back and their defensive counterparts. And I don't foresee it.
I like I said, it's because of more responsibility, and the team relies on you way more than any other position, and that's a fact. Now, of course, Lamar be having this whole narrative about he can't throw and stuff like that. He's not actual quarterback. I think that's bullshit. He's proven that already multiple times. But even still, like, there's nothing like Dak could just like having that type of look. He thinks it look good for him. Not everything has to be dealing with race or trying to prove something to right people, but none of this simple-minded mindset or ideology they always put on this video. Like, come on. If Dak Prescott was complete opposite of this in college and then just, I don't know, turned it around when he got to NFL because of something that got released and we all knew about it, then you have a case. But from my understanding, that wasn't what it is. Because I remember watching Dak Prescott being played for Mississippi State about 8 years ago, almost at this point. So once again, just more racial baiting from this Marxists that take capitalist money.
Future where that changes, even if more black quarterbacks continue to enter the league. Further, I don't think white quarterbacks will ever disappear because the white quarterbacks are showing just as much athletic ability as their black counterparts. But here's the thing, we can really leave race out of it. I'm not,
I know you
but
can't.
if you
No, you can't.
want to,
You can't. I know you can. You're physically incapable of leaving race out of it. The same way you're physically incapable of debating somebody without them paying you money to waste their time. Like, no, you can't.
you can, because whether it was purely player safety or jockey syndrome, the bottom line is that football changed for reasons other than natural evolution and innovation in the sport. The owners and administration, the people with power in the NFL, most of whom are billionaires, literally got in a room and decided the rules of the game needed to change to create a more exciting product and get more money. I'm trying to force you to look at the game beyond just a sport being played on the field, which I know is paradoxical because so many people watch football or watch any sport as an escape from those issues and topics. But the fact of the matter is, we got some bigger shit to talk about here. What killed the running back and what threatens to kill us all as workers and laborers is the dynamic between who has power in dictating what work and labor needs to look like and who doesn't. How do those in power value you as the worker and your labor in comparison to others? What are their goals and what are they willing to sacrifice to reach them? I said earlier that the current state of affairs for running backs is a matter of good business and that the rule changes in the NFL are for the good of the game. But we have to ask a couple of things here. One, what does the good of the game actually look like and who really should decide that? And two, at what point should good morals and good values trump good business?
Tom Brady was amazing at his position. Like, one of the greatest of all time at his position. His position is a very specific skill set, and the rules have been created around that skill set to market the game, right? You can't tell me with these eyes that I've seen that Tom Brady is the greatest athlete of all time when I've seen Barry Sanders run a football. You know what I'm saying?
The title isn't the greatest athlete of all time. It's the greatest football player of all time. And that's blatantly obvious. Anybody with remotely good vision can tell you Tom Brady isn't a good athlete. But he's the greatest player of all time. He's the greatest quarterback of all time. And he's demonstrated that. Yes. How many rings? 6? 7? Like, stop. It's blatantly obvious what the argument is when it comes to Tom Brady. And I agree. I love Barry Sanders. He's my favorite. Him and Jerome Bettis, my two favorite running backs of all time. So And if you ask me, I would say I would take Barry Sanders over any other running back in NFL history. So of course he's more athletic, but he's not a better player than Tom Brady in terms of value to their team. Like, come on. Of course you need a whole team, and Barry Sanders never actually had that. But let's not say that Barry Sanders is in the GOAT conversation with Tom Brady. We know who the greatest player of all time is. He's proven it. Especially in moments when you needed him the most. Game winning drives, playoffs, Super Bowls, the comeback against the Falcons. Like, of course, the defense played a huge role in that. The running game played a huge role, and Atlanta messed up a lot of things. But Tom Brady helped orchestrate the offense multiple times to get them in position to win. That's what happened.
You can't tell me that, dog. But the way in which they market this game and this league and these quarterbacks have convinced people that these underachieving quarterbacks deserve, these backup quarterbacks deserve $10 million a season.
That's not true.
Because just in case.
That's I think most fans understand, especially seeing it over and over again. Like I said in the last video, Brock Osweiler, Matt Castle, Jimmy Garoppolo, two of those guys, Matt Castle and Jimmy G, are literally, were backups of Tom Brady. Jimmy G was supposed to take over for Tom Brady at the Patriots. Luckily that didn't happen, but either way, the whole point is we've seen when these organizations make these crazy flips or leaps after these backup quarterbacks that turn out to be good for a season, it really doesn't pan out. And spend all this money on the backup quarterback is not sensical. Tell me how many Super Bowl playoff teams are doing that. Because most times, if you lose your starting quarterback, you're done. You're definitely not making it to a Super Bowl. You might not even make it to a playoffs, depending on how late it happens.
You know what I'm saying? Like that's how much they have marketed and tricked people into believing this shit. But a Saquon Barkley is like, you got what you deserve. This is the contract you signed. Well, he didn't have any opportunity because they're not negotiating on the same level playing field. It's uneven. It's not equitable. We should not be negotiating the same way with running backs that we negotiate with backup quarterbacks. It's not the same. And they will not change that. Like I said, unless there's public pressure. And the only way to do public pressure is some kind of uncomfortable
big display.
Some kind of uncomfortable shit has to happen.
So if you're a non-sports fan, you've gotten this far, you're probably
Show me a catalyst, I'll show you a bloodsucker. I was just trying to double check to see if this video was sponsored by an ad, because other videos were sponsored by somebody. So saying that bullshit is just funny. Plus, like I say in every video, a Marxist that makes money off of YouTube and ad revenue from capitalist companies. Make your shit demonetized.
probably asking yourself, how does all of this sports, ball, football nonsense relate to everyday people? Why should regular folks care that multi-millionaire athletes aren't given a fair shot to become multi-millionaire athletes? Athletes aren't auto workers or farmers or teachers. They don't provide essential labor to society. This is much ado about nothing. And there's some merit to that. But if you know me, if you've watched any of my other videos, and feel free to go watch more after you finish this, you'll understand that this—
Don't do it. I wasted too much time watching that nonsense. But reactions on the channel, but I wouldn't go and watch them in my free time if it was for this channel.
This video was never actually about running backs. This video was always about capitalism.
Of course.
That's right, y'all. I am not Tom Grossi. Also, fuck the Packers. If the last chapter didn't reveal my power level, then just strap in as I put on my Antifa mask and use the power of George Soros himself to start the NFL running back People's Revolution. Seriously, I know people probably have checked out when we started getting into race, but if you made it this far, I want you to fully hear me out here, because regardless of your race and regardless of the fact that the subject of this video are, again, multimillionaire athletes, their plight is relevant to everyone in America who has ever worked for a living. who have seen their benefits shrink, their paychecks get smaller, while their work days get longer. I won't scare you too much more, I promise. You can check out my other videos for that. My goal here was to use the plight of the running back, a position in football that produces some of the best moments in the sport, to illustrate the folly of unfettered capitalism. We have to look at how and why both the running backs and fans are just expected to be okay with this jacked up situation just because those with the money say it's best practices for the sport. This starts with recognizing that the owners, these billionaires who've never put on pads, shouldn't be the ones to dictate what's good for the game. Hell, if you know anything,
It's their team. They bought it. They didn't buy it for fun or to lose money. It's about being an investment to make more money through merchandise, TV deals, etc. And the best chance of doing so is by winning, because more people buy your jerseys, your merchandise, etc., etc., go to your games. That's what it's about.
about football ownership, half of them don't even watch the games. So we've established that running back labor just isn't all that valuable.
Because it's a business to them. Some are fans, like Mark Cuban for the Dallas Mavericks, or the owner for the Los Angeles Clippers, but these guys have other businesses. There's a reason why they couldn't afford to buy an NFL team and maintain it. So, of course, some of them are not fans. I don't give a shit.
Valuable in the open market anymore. That is still true. That is not about to change because the game has changed and the market has shifted, which is why the league has adjusted. And the rules of capitalism say that those athletes just need to maybe play different positions, switch to receiver or running back, maybe even linebacker, which is actually something that's already happened. I'm pretty sure a guy like Deebo Samuel would probably have been a running back in the NFL if he came out 10, 15 years ago. And that's the nature of free market capitalism and having competition in the marketplace and all the other stuff about capitalism that we're told, and how capitalism is the key to, American exceptionalism and all the good things in society, and that socialist egalitarian policies are so bad. And all this pro-capitalism stuff is really ironic because in reality, rich people have always loved socialist policies. They love socialism when we use public money to bail out banks under Obama. The NFL itself has a ton of socialist policies. The NFL literally practices wealth redistribution through profit sharing, allowing for poor teams in cities like Cincinnati or Detroit to remain in competition with rich teams by taking part of their money. They purposely give the worst team in the NFL the first overall draft pick, rewarding failure, as they might call it. Rich people hate social.
Well, it's not necessarily. It is in a way rewarding failure, but the whole point is to not maintain failure. They give you the pick so you can be better for better competition. That's why with the smaller market teams, there's a salary cap and they give them extra money. Try to boost them up so they can compete with the other team because of the market. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think it's better if you don't want to have like something you have in Europe with European soccer, European football, where you have these super teams like Real Madrid or Manchester City or Liverpool or Bayern Munich or Leverkusen, or these different like Paris Saint-Germain, Barcelona in the old days with Messi.
Socialism, except when it's socialism between other rich people, then it's capitalism somehow, but I digress. The problem with the logic of players just changing their position is the same problem that we have when we tell fast food workers that they should just get other jobs. The labor that job represents is still very much necessary. Somebody needs to do it. Somebody needs to run the ball, block for the quarterback and pick up blitzes and catch passes and screen passes and swing passes and all those things that make an NFL offense functional. But again, the running back still provides us with the best and most exciting parts of the game. Fans still want running backs and the modern game still needs it. So why are we allowing market forces to take it away?
All right, if this cat is still important to the game, which he is, right? All cold weather games, all playoff games will show you that. Then let's change the pay structure. Let's say they can get out of contracts a little faster. We can heavy load incentives off rip. Like there are definitely ways to do it. But again, is that good business on their end?
Right.
Their job is to put the best product on the field that they can find for the least amount of money. So just by nature of those two paradigms, you're automatically going to have a predatory relationship there. But what makes it even worse, though, is everybody knows what's happening, right? They know that by the end of most of these guys' first contract, usually they've had so much taken out of their bodies that they're not even the same player that they were when they came into the league. And during the time where they're supposed to be getting compensated for that, you know what I mean? And given the generational wealth that will actually fortify them for the rest of their career, that's when they're told that you're not valuable enough. Problem is, by the end of most of these guys' first contracts, the teams see them as damaged goods.
Yeah.
Which is crazy because y'all are the ones that damaged them. If you didn't give this guy 300 carries in a year, they'd be fine.
Right.
But you want to use them for that capital. You want them to get that mileage put on them.
They want to exploit that labor.
Compensate them for that mileage.
We have a situation where the Buffalo Bills, a top-tier team that has needed a good running back for years now, didn't sign Dalvin Cook, a top 10 running back that was a free agent this offseason.
Because he had multiple knee injuries. It's not a good investment. That's why. Why take that chance to give a whole bunch of money if you're going to get injured again, or it's possible? Find a decent running back that can do the same thing. Or just go to the draft. It just makes sense. Put that money towards your defense. Are you trying to win games or try to make sure some random angry people that don't have any investment into your team not be upset? Who gives a fuck? Fuck them. Like, seriously. Your team could make it to the Super Bowl if you make some good pickups in the offseason. Are you just going to make a dumb pickup so random people don't be upset? No. Do the right thing. Your team is built around certain concepts, certain schemes, and certain players need to be put in certain positions to thrive. You have Josh Allen, you have Stephon Diggs, and you have, I can't remember his name, that other good slot receiver. The defense, I think Von Miller, he got injured at the end of the year. I know they have another good defensive end, and they have, I think, Tre'Davious Wright. Unless I'm getting confused with another cornerback. But they have gaps they need to fill. I don't think running back is their top priority. It doesn't need to be. Your team decides who's a top priority. Your coach does. Not random people that don't even be in your organization.
Instead, they are literally starting Dalvin Cook's smaller and less talented little brother, no shade, James Cook. Somehow they want to convince us that this is best for the game, but it's really what's best for the owners. What's happening in the NFL with running backs is something that labor theorists might call specialized labor. That is, workers whose job is to do very specific things. This allows for a more streamlined and efficient work process, or in this case, an NFL offense. But it also has the byproduct of making the people that do that labor much more expendable and thus easy to underpay. Running, blocking, and catching. Those are the core features to a top-tier NFL running back. And Saquon Barkley can do all three, but it's literally cheaper to just get 3 different guys to do those same things at a fraction of the cost. Even if those 3 guys don't nearly meet Barkley's talent in any of those 3 areas. So the valuable and important labor of the NFL running back still gets done, but the players and fans suffer because the players get paid less and the fans see a lesser product. And the wildest thing is that aside from being shitty for fans and players, it's literally not how capitalism is supposed to work, at least how it's sold to us as working. If I'm not mistaken, one of the core aspects of capitalism was that talent and hard work pay off, right? No. Capitalism greatly hinges upon the concept of the profit motive. The profit motive basically states that businesses should be profit-driven above all else, even if it means disregarding how pursuing those profits affect other people. The belief being that being profit-driven will still inevitably lead to better service to customers and better products, and allowing the most talented people to use those talents is beneficial to society and everyone as a whole. Those talented, ambitious, and daring people willing to take risks will create and innovate new ways of doing things for their own selfish needs, but everyone will benefit, all that Ayn Rand shit.
But American media, American politics, American economy is very, very good at marketing on the side of the billionaires. They have convinced American people that one day you can be a billionaire too. And is that fair that you worked hard all those years to just have your employees demand all these things? Like they're very good at it, all the while getting fucked in the exact same situation, just on a smaller scale.
Yo, it's not even that they think they're going to be rich, is that they think this is just the appropriate order of the world.
That could be Stockholm syndrome.
These rich people deserve to treat us like shit because they're rich, and I deserve whatever I get because I'm not. And anybody like coming through to try to change shit, like that's why they fight so hard against their own self-interest. But like to them, that's the closest thing to being divine. They fight for them like gods.
I just love when people who aren't psychologists try to mentally, I don't know what's the word, mentally dissect why people think a certain way, and it only furthers their own agenda, their own mindset. It's not actual thought or any type of observation with it. The reason why I'm on this side of it made sense that running back start getting paid less is because of injuries, change of the game, the difference in focus of offenses, and also more dynamic team play. Like you can make a case that the game is inferior because of these running backs not getting jobs, but if you ask me, a team that can run a really good offense through their skill players and then not be a running back can still be good. Like we saw with the Chiefs, their wide receivers wasn't really that great, but they had Travis Kelce, they had Patrick Mahomes, and they had a good coach that know how to use them to be effective when it mattered the most. You don't have to always spend a whole bunch of money on highly skilled guys if you can't afford it. Patrick Mahomes took up all that money on his contract, but he still could win the Super Bowl because he's that good, and the coach is that good, and they had players that were good enough to get him over the hump.
That's the wildness of capitalism and like the culture that we've been inundated in the West. It's like rich people are overtly telling you, yo, I'm gonna like eat your children and like murder your grandparents, but it's good for the economy.
And that's legit how we tend to see the world. We deify people like Thomas Edison, Steve Jobs, Henry Ford, Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos. These men are celebrated and loved for how their hard work and ingenuity transform America and the world with their products, innovation, hard work, grit, bootstraps, get it out the mud, all that shit. Just don't think about the people they stole ideas from or all the workers they exploited or harmed with their innovations. Don't think about the fact that factories where iPhones are made have nets on the side of them to catch people who are trying to kill themselves because of how stressful and brutal the working conditions are. Or that Teslas are so poorly made that people consistently get accidentally locked in them, even when they're sometimes on fire and they can't get out their burning cars. So now there's a whole market of selling glass breaking tools as a Tesla accessory. The idea that the profit motive brings about a better product in a better society is not true. The NFL proves it, and if it ever was true, those days have long since passed. Capitalism has the capacity, if it ever was true, Tesla accessory. The idea that the profit motive brings about a better product in a better society is not true. The NFL proves it, and if it
What you say about the NFL is not true. The game is still great. It's still exciting. People are still tuning in. So if it really was that horrible because of running backs or situation, I'm not seeing it. I don't know how they can afford all these new TV deals and give Patrick Mahomes $300-some million if it's not entertaining or people aren't as engaged now. That's just a flat out lie.
ever was true, those days have long since passed. Capitalism has the capacity to promote innovation to an extent, but after a certain point, capitalism and the capitalists will always realize that the greatest innovation, the greatest way to improve profit is to find ways to pay your workers less while forcing them to work more. Going back to Henry Ford, he's best known for the assembly line. Cars used to take weeks to make, required the labor of multiple skilled mechanics, electricians, and engineers, and thus were much more expensive, making them only affordable to the rich. Then Ford created the assembly line, and the assembly line revolutionized car production and was so amazing that it was copied by other industries as well. You can see assembly lines influence in how you get your fast food, how you get your shoes, how your Amazon packages are delivered. This definitely benefited the auto industry over the long run and made cars cheaper and more affordable for more people to buy them. But assembly line work is grueling and low skill. And because those workers are less skilled, they're easier to replace, which means that Ford could pay them less and less money and replace anyone that was making an issue about how much they were being paid. Thus, for all the work that goes on in an assembly line, people losing limbs and creating calluses on their hands, trying to plug and pull the same piece into a car for hours in the entire day, they can't even afford to buy the product they're helping to make. Even now, as cars are made from plastic instead of metal, and McDonald's hamburgers are made from pink slime, and Marvel movies have awful CGI, and some of the best teams have running backs that won't even be in the NFL in 2025. And all of the people, the real humans responsible for this labor, are being paid far less than what the value of that labor is worth. The entirety of this phenomenon is something called racing to the bottom, which is basically capitalist corporations, people with the power to enforce and alter policies, deciding that it's more valuable for them to have low-skilled labor be responsible for really important things. And those important things become less valuable in the long run, and the labor becomes less valuable in the long run. But because it's essential work, things still have to get done and people will still have to pay. But the only people that truly profit in this equation are the people that are least affected by the problem. This same logic is also used to excuse low pay and support for teachers and social workers, healthcare providers, truck drivers, and so many forms of extremely important but devalued labor. People being paid less than livable wages, despite the fact that their jobs are literally essential to everyday life. Many of these people were some of the first people to report back to work before COVID was over. FYI, COVID is not over. Please get your vaccines. And some of these people
You don't need a vaccine. Don't listen to this dumbass.
literally never stopped working, even during the height of the pandemic. And we, the consumer, are not really seeing a better product. We're maybe getting it for cheaper. And the shareholders and executives at the top of the food chain see yearly increases in profits. I'm sure you've already heard that during COVID, as everyone else was suffering, the top 1% of incomes got even bigger. So it doesn't matter that Reggie Bush didn't become the next Barry Sanders. It doesn't matter that 3 or 4 mediocre running backs can do the same job as Saquon Barkley. The labor that they do is not only still valuable and entertaining, it's grueling for them. Their humanity is still valuable. And there definitely needs to be a reckoning with the fact that the changes and evolution in the game did not come from a natural process. It came from those above deciding to change the game in a way that increased their profits. And I know that some people are going to be like, well, the players should just be grateful to get as much money as they're getting, especially running backs, because they're so easy to replace. And, you know, this is one of the reasons why I brought up the racial component, because you can't not notice that we're talking about 99% of NFL owners being old white billionaires and 99% of NFL running backs being young black men. Surely any football player should be thankful for the fact that they get paid obscene amounts of money to play a sport, to play a game. And there is minimal chance of death, at least during your playing days. So sure, but not to the point where they should be okay with being exploited in an unfair situation, that they should be okay with how much money their work generates and they don't get the biggest piece of that pie. Instead, it goes to these old white men who've never put on a helmet.
Well, they're the old white men that, you know, own the team and run the day-to-day operations, so these guys can't get paid. Yeah, those same old white men. I mean, of course, when you can only focus on categories like money and race, and you're that simple-minded, of course, that's all this bullshit makes sense to you. But you know, when you know actually have people running businesses, and you're not just a Marxist making capitalist money, you can understand why people who own the business make the most money. Because of course, you can only think about the worker. You're not thinking about everything that takes to run that business. Administrative costs, overhead, all the different things. The people they have to pay that's not on the field. I know your brain can't think that far, but the people in the office, like the marketing people, the agents, and not like agents for like the athletes, but like more so like scouts and stuff like that. All those different people in the organization that get paid and help the team runs, and you just don't see it. At least not on camera most of the time. Those people are up in the booth or they're at home because it's their day off. Especially, yeah, like on Sunday, it's their day off. All those people that work the organization. You know, you can't really think about that type of stuff when you already think of exploitation, working class, racism. Bullshit.
Arian Foster and Aaron Maben both put their bodies on the line literally to play that game and to make that money. You could argue that they should be grateful and that they inherited world-class athleticism maybe, but they still put in the work to get where they are.
Yeah, that is wild.
The idea is that this is an honor and a privilege, and how dare you have the audacity not to take it with a smile and say thank you.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that was always my big, like when I walked away from the game, I had more football in me. I had a lot more football in me, but I didn't have the business of football in me anymore. Okay. I didn't have a love for the entire process that I had at one point in time. You know what I mean? And that's a very real thing for a lot of players, especially now. And think about it, that guys my age and younger are the first generation that even knows about CTE and, you know what I mean? Like the real results of brain trauma. Right. You know what I'm saying? Like, right. And think about it like this. It's like, man, I haven't played the game in 10 years. You know what I mean? But I know for a fact I played it since I was 5 years old. You know what I'm saying? So there's no way that I don't have some type of bullshit in my future as a result of this game. And for me to be the guy now, like, the only reason you know me now is because of what's in my head. You know what I mean? Like, my intellect, my art, my talent, like, everything that's in my head is literally what makes me who I am now. And that's the thing that I have to worry about literally being ripped apart at some point. How many of us would have actually played if we knew that? You know what I mean?
I would say a good chunk.
And playing in the NFL is a privilege.
I would say a good chunk is still playing in the NFL, and they will take their chances. Of course, because of circumstances, family, money issues, but like every high paying, well, not every. There's a lot of high paying jobs that take risks with labor. Underwater, like oil, drillings, those type of guys, the refineries, all these different jobs that people really don't do and are dirty, dangerous. People do them still, and those are less deadly and make a lot less money compared to NFL running back.
Privilege. What the fuck is you talk like by the definition of privilege? Like you can I guess you can categorize anything as a privilege. You know, eyesight is a privilege, right? But the way they market it is like it's a privilege to play in the city. Like, no, dog, it's a right. I bullied my way here. Like, I earned this. Like, how's that a privilege? And then from that, they take from you your humanity about how you got there. They take from you what I feel is like regular working labor conditions. Like you have to be able to bang for your fellow employees.
Meanwhile, the strongest predictor of being rich in America is being born rich. We create this fantasy about our millionaires and billionaires being self-made, but the vast majority of rich people, the people that we celebrate, often were rich before they became famous. Jeff Bezos, we talk about how he started Amazon from his garage, but not about the fact that he got a $250,000 investment from his parents. When you hear people say that these players should be grateful, what you're hearing is a class and low-key racist dog whistle. The idea that those born rich and powerful deserve that wealth and power by some divine right, and if they choose to share that wealth with you, the lowly football player, whether you're a black and from an inner city neighborhood, or the litany of white rural players from small country towns destroyed by neoliberal policies, you should be fine. In fact, you should be so lucky. And once again, this is why it's universal, because it's not just running backs, it's everyone who has a job. people don't want to raise the minimum wage for McDonald's workers like motherfuckers don't eat McDonald's. People think that McDonald's is for high school.
I mean, you really shouldn't. But of course, it's not bad to eat it every now and then. It just shouldn't be a mainstay. But yeah, you shouldn't get paid a lot for frying French fries or working McDonald's. Boo-hoo. Boo-hoo. Like, sorry. I don't know what the fuck to tell you.
School kids, like you wake up at 9 a.m. and get your chicken biscuit from a teenager who's going to high school. Those kids are in school. That person serving you that chicken biscuit at 9 a.m. is a young adult that needs to pay their bills. And before you say, well, that young person should just go get a better job if they want better pay, my question is, who's going to serve you your chicken biscuit then?
I just don't understand it. But like, they have conditioned this society into thinking that sports figures and athletes, it's a separate entity from the workforce. Like, it's brilliant for the ownership and the people who own these organizations and the leagues. It's brilliant. Like, it's a brilliant marketing. It's job well done. But, and also you don't get the empathy from your blue collar workers, right? You don't get that because it's still a labor issue. It's a labor issue on a much grander scale. And I could lobby for better work conditions. I could lobby for healthcare. I could lobby for all these things, not being understanding that this is a lot of money. You know what I mean? I all those things could be true at once, but that which is in the micro is in the macro. If they fucking us at this scale, they definitely fucking you on a smaller scale. And that is the bigger issue, is like once people realize that, man, I don't know how many movements socially across this nation's history have happened because sports, or happened because major issues, entertainment, whatever the case may be, has ushered those conversations into public consciousness and then has trickled down into the regular average day life. That happens all the time, which is why entertainment, representation, all that shit is very important, and why we would bang for that shit all the time, because it matters in the day-to-day life. But like, they have done such a good job of marketing themselves as giving these poor people opportunities that when we bang for anything, we're ungrateful. And like, when people really start waking up, it's like, man, my boss is doing the same thing as these bosses. Like, that's when real change happens.
Football and sports in general are unique because it's the closest thing that exists in America that's a true meritocracy, at least with the players, of course. America has this mythology about bootstrap politics and hard work and innovation playing golf, and that's not true, except for on the field or the court or anywhere else where sport is being played. And I think that's why we love sports so much universally. The football stadium is the only place where you'll see every social, political, sexual, or ethnic group represented and unbelievably united behind one specific cause. Because in the confines of the game, those ideologies and identities get flattened into working together and supporting a goal. Sports is the only place where the American myth is still real, and the winners actually deserve to win because they were truly the most talented and most innovative. NFL players are in the NFL because 9 times out of 10, they represent the best possible laborers for the work that is professional football. Meanwhile, the owners and capitalists, their goal is making money. They have comfy chairs that they sit in while the real work is being done on the field. And we're just supposed.
Yes, and I guess the magic business fairy floats in and makes sure the business runs by itself.
To take their word for it that this is the best the NFL can be.
I wonder if he feels that same way about the bosses of the sponsorships that he gets, or the ad money that he gets from those companies.
As we watch Alexander Mattison run for 3 yards a carry this season, I am not grateful for this. In fact, if anything, the owners of the NFL need to be grateful for me. It's my dollars and eyes, the dollars and eyes of the fans, that generate the billions or trillions of dollars that the NFL makes. And the NFL splits this money 50-50 between 32 NFL owners and 1,700 plus NFL players. There is no more clear example of the tyranny of capitalism than these old, frail men holding the power and profiting 50% of this billion-dollar industry based completely off of these world-class athletes' bodies that are literally shaving years off their life and sacrificing their bodies for the sake of glory and our entertainment. You tell me who should be grateful for who in that equation. And while you're at
If they didn't buy an NFL team, they would just invest that money into other things. They didn't just wake up one day and say, "Oh, I'll buy a team." No, most of these guys got dozens of other valuable, profitable businesses. So I doubt they'll be on their hands in these grateful. They just make something else or invest in something else.
it, tell me how most any workplace in this country under capitalism is all that different. I know when we think of workers' rights, millionaire professional athletes are not who should come to mind. I don't want it to be mistaken that I don't see a level of grossness in the very nature of professional sports in the face of poverty across the country and the world. And all of these running backs are already one percenters who still see more money in their short careers, yada, yada, yada. I already explained this. But I also know that I could talk about this issue and hopefully people can understand and recognize that their plight is much more similar than it is apart. As with all forms of real value in our world, the source of said value is not from the top down, but from the bottom up. The value and power and talent is not from the capitalists who control the means of production, but with the laborers who make that production possible. And the laborers need to take action to rebalance that power to make things not just more fair for their labor, but also genuinely better for the sport. Unfortunately, the NFL has a players union that just agreed to a 10-year deal only back in 2020. So per that agreement, the next time the players could legally do anything about this problem would be well after many of them have played their last down. But I don't know, strikes are growing in popularity these days. It's no wonder why strikes are up in the United States 50% since 2022, and more people are seeking to take power from the capitalists. There's a lot of people, especially after COVID, looked at this system and said, whoa, y'all motherfuckers really don't care if we live or die. And we've been working our ass off thinking that this is the best it can be. And now that we know things are different, y'all might have to run some checks. And that's what NFL running backs should do.
Yeah, I'm
it
seeing
may
that
be
all
ugly.
over right now.
I may enjoy Madden 24 or 25 a bit less, and it might ruin the NFL season. And that would suck, but I would be much happier to get a better version of the sport in 2026 than to watch Kyron Williams start another game for the Los Angeles Rams. If these folks want their money, they're gonna have to organize and take it from the people that owe it to them. And that's not just me talking about NFL running backs. Speaking of organizing with like-minded people, this video is only possible because of an organization that I joined a few years ago called Nebula. I pride myself.
Oh, because of probably a capitalist venture, a startup company, and he's sponsored by them. Oh, I'm fucking surprised. So don't fuck talking about capitalism the whole time as a sponsorship. I'm shocked. Just like I'm shocked by his ad revenue that he doesn't decline from his sponsorships. It is so funny. Oh man, I really don't understand how anybody can listen to him, take him seriously, and have brain cells. But I'm surprised I actually got through the whole video. Once again, same shit, different video. Racial, racism, nonsense. Clearly, he has knowledge on football, but his whole explanation from things is completely skewed by his ideology, like in every video. Running backs do have a key piece in offenses, but not as much as they used to. And because of that reason that they don't as much as they used to, you don't get paid as much. It makes more sense to have 3 different running backs and have depth in case they get injured compared to having one good one and he could be injured and then my offense is all screwed up. Especially if I build my whole offense around you. Compared to a quarterback or a left tackle or a couple more wide receivers or a tight end, that can help my whole offense. And then when you have the addition of modern offense with screens, RPOs, you can get these weapons that are not running backs in valuable situations where they can get downfield. You get touchdowns with big plays, first downs. That's why. you're not confined anymore to a running back taking the ball off the line of scrimmage. You can throw a screen to your wide out, have two blockers, two wide receivers in slot, and let them get some yards. Most coaches nowadays see that just like a run play or a run play. So they're still running in the game. It just doesn't look the same as it used to be. It may not be the top guys, but it's still guys that can do certain jobs that need to get done. And if it makes more sense for my pass heavy offense and most of my money is going to my quarterback, it makes more sense for me to put my rest of my money into my wide receivers and my offensive line and my defense and not my running back. I can get a running back to catch out of the side like a safety valve or run for running when I want to do so. And I want to use a running back to run. Because with the Chiefs, they do so much stuff. Whether it's the screens, whether the shovel pass with Travis Kelce. When you make a dynamic offense, you don't rely on just one position. You don't need a great person at every position, one position like you used to be. You can spread that talent, that money around different areas. So every other position is just a little bit better. And in case somebody does get injured, you don't feel it as much because you have options, you have depth, you have flexibility. You're not just relying on the good running back. Come on, it's obvious. If the Ravens lost, I think it might have been Jamal Williams, the running back for the Ravens, when they won that Super Bowl with Ray Lewis, Ed Reed, and Trent Dilfer. If he got injured, there's really no way in hell I couldn't imagine the Ravens getting to the Super Bowl and winning. Even if that defense is that good, you still need some type of offense. And if your quarterback isn't good, like Trent Dilfer was, you don't have a good running back to get yards and get touchdowns. Plus, you don't have that good running back to help your play action offense, help your passing for that quarterback that already isn't that good. You're going to struggle. You're not going to do well. That's the way it is. That's how I see it. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Like, share, and subscribe. It's your boy Logos, and I'll see you next time.